We're living in extraordinary times, and in a moment that has shaken the founders' vision for America to its core. Democracy and the American rule of law itself are now up for debate. If you haven't been living under a rock, I'm sure you've heard that before. But what if I told you that there's more to this moment that makes it even more extraordinary that hasn't been talked about at all and flat out ignored and hidden by the media? I've already did a video giving 5 reasons why America lost. This video is more about capturing the remarkableness of this moment that mainstream media isn't talking about. I'm about to drop science. Keep it locked in.
Politics, 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 Israeli, let's go. Politics, 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 XL, let's go. Politics, 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 this culture. Politics with a culture, let's politic, this culture, politics.
Peace and blessings, family. This is Culture Politics, the show where we teach political nuance by decoding the matrix of these political streets through the lens of truth, justice, history, and the culture. Here for the people and here on the shoulders of my ancestors with all facts and never cap, I'm your host, artist and entrepreneur Jerrel XL. If you're standing on blackness with me, welcome to the movement. First off, please, please, please take a second right now to like, share, and subscribe to help the movement grow. Thank you very much. Election night 2024. I was at a local gathering spot for a watch party. The energy was high all night. There were shout-outs to HBCUs and the different groups in the Divine Nine, which is the name for the 9 historically black Greek letter organizations. The AKAs with their green and pink adornments were there the strongest. Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority was founded in 1908 at Howard University, one of the most prestigious HBCUs in the country. It was the first African American sorority. From their beginning, they were about the advancement of African Americans. On this night, one of their own sisters was headquartered at her alma mater, Howard University, awaiting the results of an election that could make her the first woman president of the United States. True to the AKA motto, she got to this position by culture and by merit. As the results came in, I saw tears in the eyes of many sisters at the event that I was at. The crowd at Howard that stood for hours outside awaiting the moment and speech of a lifetime started to dissipate with no speech from Vice President Kamala Harris. 92% of the black women that voted and 78% of the black men that voted chose Kamala Harris and democracy. There are 2 sides to a coin. No matter how different those 2 sides represent, it's still the same coin. This moment in United States history is that coin. 2 very different sides, but yet connected as if they were yin and yang. On one side of the coin, this was the lowest moment in modern black history because it was the greatest rejection of black excellence in the face of white privilege and incompetence that we've ever witnessed. And also because that rejection was not just by racists where it's expected, but by some black men, Latinos, and Asians whose right black people in general, and especially black women, have always stood up for. I'm also not just counting those that voted for the rapist, but also those that didn't vote at all because they didn't see his character, his sexual abuse, his pedophilia associations, his fraud, his chaos, or his lack of leadership ability as something worth standing up against. Because for all his flaws, Kamala simply being black or simply being a woman or both was just as bad, so they didn't vote at all. We call that a false equivalency. As I've said before in a previous video, anytime you choose white privilege over black excellence, you have white supremacy. It's a simple formula. White supremacy doesn't exist without something to be supreme over, without the merit to justify that supremacy. Kamala Harris was the Attorney General of the largest state in the country and the 6th biggest economy in the world. She then went on to be a senator from that state. She then went on to be the vice president for one of the most successful administrations in our lifetime, as America recovered faster from a global crisis than any first world country on earth. She was the first woman to hold the office of vice president in American history, and the first black person to do so as well. The daughter of a black Jamaican man, graduate of Howard University, and proud AKA sister, she defines black excellence. Her campaign was put together in mere days and broke campaign financing records. It was a campaign built on joy and forging a new way forward, turning the page on the past and a new generation of leadership. Black excellence. She had plans for small business owners, for new homeowners, for families with newborns, and for families that are caretaking their elders. She had plans to strengthen Obamacare, to take on rising grocery prices due to price gouging, and to build new homes in America so that everyone had a more viable path to home ownership. She consistently spoke about everyone getting the opportunity to work and live with dignity. Her opponent, he had no such plans on any of these issues. In nearly a decade in political life, he never had a plan for healthcare and lied at a debate mentioning he had a concept of a plan for which the media never felt the need to drill down on. He campaigned about prices being too high and that he would bring them down, yet with no plan to bring them down. And when the election was over and smoke cleared, he admitted that there was nothing he could do to bring prices down. The Teflon Khan strikes again. Kamala was smarter than him, sharper than him, more sane than him, more competent than him, healthier than him, more trustworthy than him, more responsible than him, more virtuous than him, far more caring and concerned with the lives of the American people than him, and with more plans to prove that. Yet he won. He won as a convicted felon, awaiting not just sentencing, but also 3 more trials on the docket. Both of my grandmothers have transitioned, and I know for a fact how disappointed they would be, and not just because Kamala is black and the rapist is white, because to them right is right and wrong is wrong. To them character matters. The fact that she's a black woman and that he's a white supremacist, and that some of our own open their minstrel show MAGA mouths on Al Gore's internet to shuck and jive, step and fetch it, and be loud and wrong in support of white supremacy is what probably has not just my grandmothers, but all of my ancestors that built this country turning in their graves. This was like if Rosa Parks was told to move to the back of the bus to make room for a white rapist, and while 78% of black men tried to help her, others caught up in the quote of personality of the rapist didn't. Minstrel Show MAGA chose to align themselves with all the racists in comment sections and on social media that supported George Zimmerman, persecuted Trayvon Martin, persecuted Kaepernick, persecuted Breonna Taylor, mocked George Floyd, supported his killers, despised Obama for being black, and shits on Beyonce every chance they get. As repulsive as Minstrel Show MAGA is today, I just know that they have the ancestors doing somersaults in the grave, as they are the spiritual descendants of the snitch-ass weirdos Harriet Tubman and Nat Turner would have probably shot. It's not that the enslaved ancestors would be shocked at this moment either, because let's be real, they witnessed house Negroes coddle up and side with their white massa to publicly shame and humiliate intelligent and caring black women in their time as well. But to know that it's still happening over 150 years later and at this stage would be remarkable to them. This election for me was on par with the Tulsa massacre and the murder of Emmett Till. It was white supremacy, white privilege, white ignorance, and white grievance publicly lynching black excellence at the highest stage on earth with the highest stakes in American history. This is why this is the lowest moment in modern black history. And this is why the amazing 92% has taken the stance they have. We at Culture Politics fully support it. On the other side of the coin, in blindingly stark contrast, she ran against the most unqualified candidate in American history. Someone who didn't get the endorsement of 40 members of his own previous administration, including his former vice president, former generals, former chief of staff, and the list goes on and on and on. He was a complete failure as a president that was impeached twice, and he left the country in shambles due to his mishandling of COVID. The man can't legally operate a charity in his own state of New York due to the fraud he ran involving a charity for children with cancer. The man can't operate a business in New York due to the business fraud he ran, in which he still owes the state $500 million. He was adjudicated for sexual abuse. He was indicted for 88 felonies and convicted on 34 of them heading into the election. He incited an insurrection on the Capitol and sent fake electors to disrupt the certification of an election. Ayo, full motherfucking stop. There's never been anyone applying for any job with more negatives against them, any job alone, let alone the President of the United States. Yet white privilege got him the nomination without him even participating in the primary and ultimately led to re-election. We've never witnessed a more stunning example of white privilege in our lifetime. Never. He's the dream of every Confederate flag-waving plantation owner. The worst qualified person in history failed all the way up to the highest job in the land. I've said it before, but could that have happened to Barack Obama? Hell nah. And that's why it's white privilege. The media won't mention the white privilege of the moment because their billionaire owners benefit from and are complicit in white supremacy. Ignore the media's gaslighting and recognize what makes this moment the most appalling and disgusting moment in our lifetime. If a black man couldn't get away with this because of his race, then a white man getting away with it because of his race at this level, considering the crime, the impeachments, the sexual abuse, the lack of a character, etc., is wild and a moment that has to truly be considered in ways the media will never mention. We've known that MAGA was a backlash to the Obama presidency. But this moment is bigger than just that. The MAGA movement is the backlash to the civil rights movement itself. And with Project 2025's emphasis on states' rights and taking away personal rights, MAGA is also the backlash to the results of the Civil War. This moment is the peak of white privilege. We have the option of a healer or a divider. One candidate that vowed to be a president for all Americans, and one that simply cared about his own loyalists. One who had the support of our global allies, and one who abandons our historical allies in favor of the dictators he gets on his knees for. One candidate that spoke with grace, class, and dignity, and the other who, in the words of our good brother Kung Fu Kenny, moves like a degenerate, heavy antic and feeling distasteful, spoke like a morally depraved degenerate that could barely complete a coherent sentence or even thought for that matter. One who inspired hope, and the other who stoked the racist flames of his Confederate following. This was on full display at the debate I referenced earlier, in which Kamala Simmers sauteed the orange pufferfish grapist to where, while repeatedly lying with every breath he took, he couldn't even be a man and look at her eye to eye. White ignorance crumbling in the face of black excellence. Yet that ignorance and privilege was rewarded with the highest honor in the country. I'm also reminded that when given the choice, the religious establishment of his day chose to crucify Jesus the healer instead of Barabbas, a notorious convicted felon who was involved in rebellion and murder. An egregious moment then, and we're in an egregious moment now that defies all logic and reason. We know about democracy versus fascism, and that's important, and adds to my point about white privilege. However, this moment is also a coin with two sides that we will never forget. This moment is the deepest stain in our history. Don't let them folk gaslight you. You heard? Pray you got value out of this video. Thank you for watching. Politics is power, and culture politics is for the people. So please like, share, and subscribe. Shout out to all my fellow light workers. Keep shining in the darkness. See you on the next one. Peace.